Hello, and welcome back to Humanity First. Today I wanted to discuss this organization, which is one of a few organizations that have been growing over the last few years and that are beginning to form a kind of loose coalition, a united front representing those that think that artificial intelligence development of this technology is very dangerous and who advocate for slowing down or pausing the development of this technology. I wanted to just discuss the organization itself and talk about the many things that I think they're 100% right on, and some small critiques that I have as I've investigated them more and have gotten more involved in this organization. But right at the outset, I will just say that um, overwhelmingly, I support this organization, and I think they're doing great work for advocating for our position, essentially, in the public. So PauseAI is really what can be considered an activist group. They do all sorts of things. They have, mainly, from my experience with them, um, they they coordinate with more specifically policy groups, and they mobilize the public to contact legislators and lawmakers to try to push through critical policies that they think are important for their ultimate goal, which is to slow down or pause the development of artificial intelligence. And one great thing about the group is that they are a global organization. They have chapters in many different countries, and besides PauseAI, the global organization, they also have national specific organizations. So there's PauseAI USA for just the United States, and those sub-organizations, though they don't have any official affiliation with the global organization, of course they coordinate, but this national organization of PauseAI engages also in what can be considered lobbying. So they seem to have a very broad mission, like it's not fully determined. Mostly it's reaching out to legislators, mobilizing people who are worried about this to channel that worry in politically useful directions. They organize some protests, but nothing really major up to now. And they're also engaged in trying to spread this message of the dangers of artificial intelligence. And they do have online their official policy document that justifies why they are worried about the development of this technology, the policies that they would advocate for. And I have to say, it's very well written. Clearly, they're very well informed about the issue, and so they really nailed, I think, many things in that policy document about how this technology is unique, different from other technologies. And they really cut to the heart of the risk associated with artificial intelligence and why the alignment problem is difficult and why pausing or slowing down this technology is so important. And they're a rapidly growing group. From what I understand, I think they started in 2023 and they've been growing very rapidly since. They organize primarily in Discord channels, and I will go ahead and link their resources in the description as well, so that you can get involved if you're also interested. And they have, as I said, a global presence, which is really important for this particular issue, because it's really not a national issue confined to any one nation. It really is an international problem, and it must be tackled by by organizations that at least have coordination with entities outside their own home country. But with all that being said, I did want to note a few things. The first thing that I noticed is that the conversations and the personnel that man PauseAI is very different from other groups that are worried about the existential risks from artificial intelligence. If I had to describe the difference, I'd say it's much more of an activist flavor to it. It has, like, a lot of the people there have experience as activists for other causes. So, like, for a lot of them, I think, are also involved in causes for like climate change. And there is a unique kind of energy and focus that comes with the culture being from derived from those origins that is different from the culture derived from other groups. And I think that that's a positive thing. I do think that in some ways the culture that usually permeates the groups that are the legacy groups that have been worried about the rise of artificial intelligence for a long time is sort of like uh, belongs to a particular subculture that might not have a lot of public appeal. And shedding that is a necessary process in essentially taking this message to the mainstream. So PauseAI definitely has um, definitely has a different different DNA. They come from a different origin, and so that was just something interesting that I noticed being there. But then, in addition to that, there are a few things that I think, just from reading their policy document and attending some of their meetings, so a few things that I thought could be slightly improved. One is a technical issue, and the other is a strategic disagreement. The technical issue has to do with how they assess the risk of this technology. So they rightly identify that the key pillars that have to exist for artificial intelligence to be truly dangerous are, I think they break it down as intelligence, autonomy, and generality. So intelligence, I suppose they mean just like basic raw capability of the model. Autonomy, so ability to perform long horizon tasks without having to check in with a human. And generality, being able to be applied to many, many different domains instead of just one. And their way of assessing risk is, I think, if a system has one of those three things, they classify them as like risk category 1. And then if it has two of those, it's risk category 2. And if it has all three, then it's risk category 3. I believe that that's their designation. And so this is like central to, this really informs their policies that they're advocating for. So they, for example, will advocate for policies to, on all those fronts, to combat autonomy, to make these systems less autonomous, to make these, to halt the improvements in intelligence, to try to pause or slow down how quickly the capabilities of the models are growing, and to advocate for more narrow uses of artificial intelligence instead of having truly generalized systems that can pose a threat to humanity. And I'm fine with this in principle. I think that they are correct, that these are the key ingredients that go into making something dangerous. But I do think that strategically, that it leads to policies that might not be as robust as one would think. Because really, out of those three pillars, the core pillar is the intelligence. Specifically, autonomy is actually something, if you already have like a very capable model, that is very intelligent, then you can transform it into an autonomous agent very easily, very quickly. So that autonomy pillar is really not as like if you fail to prevent models from getting more and more intelligent, and you fail to make models more and more to prevent models from being more general, then and you let's suppose that you are actually able to prevent or to halt or slow down progress towards autonomy, you wouldn't really be accomplishing much, because the breakout time to go to an autonomous agent that can seriously threaten humanity is extremely short if you already are starting with a very capable model. Same thing with generality. Actually, generality and intelligence, what we're finding out is they're actually linked. If you want to make a model, especially with how deep learning models are trained, for like large language models, for example, if I want to make a model a really good, have domain expertise in finance, I have to train it on everything. I can't just train it on finance data. I train the model on everything, and then possibly during post-training, you can kind of have focus in on finance to make the model more capable in this one domain. But so strangely, in a way, the language understanding that a model develops from reading a random Reddit page that has nothing to do with finance helps it as a finance specialist. So the concept of the three pillars that they have, I think, is not very robust, because generality and intelligence are linked in how these systems are being trained now. And so it's really hard to separate those out. And autonomy is just is really kind of a surface level thing. It's actually trivial. If you already have a very powerful model, then you can very easily make it autonomous agent. Of course, now a lot of people spend a lot of energy and time on autonomy and trying to make a model a really good agent, but that's only because the models are still not that powerful. As a model gets more powerful, it gets better at using tools natively. You don't need as much scaffolding around it. So I think that that is one technical disagreement that I had with their policy document. The second disagreement has to do with strategy, I would say. I think the fact that this organization is derived from other activist organizations and that many of the membership are kind of involved in other causes gives them a certain mentality. Even though in their documentation they state that this is a unique problem, it's really unlike any other problem that humanity has faced. Still, because of the nature of the inertia and the culture that this organization is derived from, you tend to have a lot of thinking that is really more applicable for an organization that is meant to tackle an issue like climate change than it is to tackle an issue like the growth in capabilities of artificial intelligence. Actually, in many ways, I would say that the growth in capabilities of artificial intelligence is the opposite of a problem like climate change. Climate change happens gradually, and it causes many effects in the world. And many of these are kind of unexpected, they cannot be fully modeled. And if you compare and contrast that to and also it's not catastrophic for humanity in any way. It's something that can be understood and mitigated through gradualist policies, through building consensus over time to reduce the amount of carbon that we're putting into the atmosphere. But also, if we do decrease the amount of carbon being put into the atmosphere, humanity can adapt to this. I know that some people consider this a more serious problem, some consider it a more dangerous problem, but humanity is very adaptable. And yes, there's an element of unpredictability when you're changing things about the climate, but but I'm fully confident that humanity can adapt to gradual changes in the climate because of warming. Artificial intelligence is really completely a different problem. It's a totally different beast. This is, first of all, something that's happening extremely quickly. It's coming at us right now. And the time to react, there will be no time to adapt. Once these models reach a certain level of capability, they will transform the world in ways that will be very difficult for humanity to adapt to. And if they're misaligned, they can be extremely dangerous, and there is almost nothing that we can do at that point to mitigate that danger. Here, so the nature of the issue is different. And that's why I think that the strategies employed should also be different. Coordinating to talk to lawmakers is, in some ways, the optimal strategy for an issue like climate change. To get a few people that are personally worried, connect them with some experts, craft certain policies, and then coordinate and mobilize the activists to push for particular policies. This is an approach that works really well for an issue like climate change, but I don't think that it will work very well for an issue like the growth of the technology, of the growth of artificial intelligence. And I think that, in a way, the message for the growth of artificial intelligence is a more powerful message that will resonate more with the public. If you tell someone that we're developing essentially an artificial life form of sorts, and that it will be super intelligent very, very soon, and we have no idea how to control it or how to align it to our values and preferences, once it reaches that point, we can't guarantee that it won't just go completely off the rails. And already we've demonstrated deceptive behavior and actually even murderous behavior on part of these models to preserve themselves. If you say this to most people, and that the people that are developing this technology think that there's a good chance that it will wipe out everyone and are still going forward with developing it, this message is much more powerful than, like the sea level will rise by 6 inches over the next century. It's a very different message. And it has a power that the narrative behind climate change and the actual possibilities that can ensue, the disasters that can ensue because of a warming climate, doesn't have. It's a totally different level of risk. And because of that, it will have a totally different resonance with people. And obviously, there isn't as much time to act on artificial intelligence as there is to act to mitigate the effects of climate change. So I think that the focus should be different. The focus needs to be the more Bernie Sanders approach, the more appealing to the public approach, and believing in the strength of the message, that if this is presented to people with good argumentation for why this is actually true, that there will be a response from the people, and ultimately you can affect policymakers in this way. So that's pretty much what I have to say about this particular group as of now. But again, to couch this, sandwich this, and I always got the advice that if you're offering a little bit of criticism, you should sandwich it between 2 compliments. But in this case, it is a genuine compliment. Those people that are involved in this organization, they are doing the Lord's work. They are really doing an excellent job. So a great thanks to them for being willing to realize this issue and jump on it and organize events and think through policies and show up for meetings and protests. Those are incredible sacrifices these are sacrifices that these people are making when no one else is. So good on them for doing that. And I do think that this group like PauseAI definitely does have a role to play in the wider push to slow down the development of artificial intelligence. But I do believe personally that the main route is going to be through the public first. The public must be informed about the problem in a stark, direct way, reasonable way, but honest as well. And then, as a byproduct of that, there will be policies. But if we go the route of just trying to go through politicians, we will ultimately be defeated. Because, and this is a problem that already, like, we've already faced. Like there was the 10-year moratorium. There was a bill that was passed recently that puts a 10-year pause on all state legislation of artificial intelligence. And PauseAI came out very firmly against passing this. So to allow states to regulate individually the development of this technology. And they had many, many meetings calling lawmakers, but the bill passed anyways. And why? Because the interests that you're fighting against are extremely well capitalized. And the reality is that 1,000 people, or I guess 1,000 people calling their senators, is not going to tip the political balance at all, actually, especially compared to a, I don't know, $500 million donation from a company to a political campaign. So the path to affecting policy has to drive through the public. And this will be successful if pursued because of the strength of the message, because of the truth of the message. Ultimately, that's what will deliver success, is being truthful in public. And the effects that will have on people when they hear a message that is true about an impending danger to them and their families, spoken with reason and conviction. But okay, I'll go ahead and stop here. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to talk to you guys again later. See, and don't forget, winter's coming. All right.